All right, good morning, Shred Nation. Welcome to episode 141 of the School of Shred with your host, myself, John Reed. I'm your holistic health and fitness coach. Welcome to the show that's designed to help you shred your old and make better your new, baby. It is Wednesday today. We are in 2021, and we are here to learn how to get mentally, spiritually, and physically fit for life, because life is a marathon. And we don't want to have just one without the other, because the longer you do this thing, the longer you get in shape, the longer you pursue your fitness goals, you will realize that everything is connected. All systems are connected, and that's what we talk about on the show. So let's get a better body, a better mindset, a better life. This is episode 141. Today we're going to talk about it's not how much weight you lift, it's how well it is directed, which is something that I dug a lot deeper into in some studies that I did a few years back that I continue to do with a certain course called RTS. And I've talked about that before on the show. It's pretty much how I operate, how I resistance train. It was that profound. And it's more about how intelligently can we direct forces to the muscle we want to train, not just lifting heavy weight, which I've done both. My early 20s, I used to just lift weight because I thought that was the thing that was going to get me the result without worrying so much about execution and technique. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of young kids that I see in the gym, and they just try to lift as heavy as possible with no control, no ownership. So we're going to talk about that today to try and give out some information to help folks out there clean up their technique a little bit, get the result they want, and that's really what it comes down to, is getting the result you want in as little time as possible, right? Not the easy way, but the efficient way. So welcome to the School of Shred. The show's here Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. Throw a flex emoji in the comments if you guys are with me right now, if you're hanging out, if you're watching. If you want to check us out on Spotify and take the school on the go, just go to The School of Shred on Spotify and on iTunes. The last thing I'll say before we get going is, if you find value in this show today, please share it. Share it wherever you're at. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, if you want to share the YouTube link, it helps the show grow organically. It doesn't cost you a dime, and hopefully it can help other people out there that you know. So be a good steward of the information, pay it forward. So let's get into it. So it's not how much. That's the name of today's episode. And so it's not how much, and what I'm talking about is specifically exercise and weightlifting and resistance training. So it's not how much weight that you can lift. It's about how well that force is directed. Okay. So lifting 50 pounds for, say, if you're doing a bicep curl and you're doing 50-pound bicep curls with like a barbell, there's really endless possibilities for how you could lift that weight and how you can initiate that whole thing. But it's not about the weight. The load that you pick up is 50% of the equation. Okay. The rest of it is this thing called torque. And then there's a bunch of components that make up torque, which is going to be speed at which you lift with. So controlling inertia. So we could get out of work, or we could find more work with weight. And that's where exercise truly gets to a deeper level of understanding, is when you start to manipulate a given weight in different ways. You can make a weight lighter, you can make it easier. If we're trying to get muscles to grow, and that is our goal is natural muscle growth. Our goal is lifting for medicinal reasons. And when I say medicinal reasons, I mean maintaining orthopedic health, growing muscle tissue, burning body fat, right? All of the things that I think a lot of us listening to this episode want out of what we think weightlifting is, which is overall health, right? So, staying away from arthritis, trying to protect ourselves from arthritis, trying to have stronger muscles, trying to have more energy, trying to have less body fat. That's kind of the goal that I'm lumping and talking about today, because it all comes down to the goal, right? So surely, if you were in a sport where getting as much weight up as humanly possible was the goal, well, then that would be a lot different than what I'm about to get into. But I think it's important to discern, that fact that there is different goals out there. So there's not There's not one way to sum things up for every single goal. So we're talking about health. And so when we're talking about health, we want to direct the forces that we put in our body in a very calculated fashion. And so if we go too heavy, we put ourselves at a lot of risk. And what I mean is if you're slapping on too much weight and you think that the load is what's going to grow muscle and the load is what's going to make you stronger. Let's kind of revisit that a little bit. I'm going to ask you to revisit that because it's not about that. Like I tell my clients, it's not about if I slapped on this much weight, could you do it, right? Like if it was a life and death scenario, could you lift this weight 5 times, 10 times? I have a client right now who wants to bench press 135 for reps. So like the 8 to 10 rep range. That's his short-term goal. And he can do like 115 right now. And the thing is he could probably do 135 for 10 right now if I got him hyped up and it was a life and death scenario with lots of adrenaline going. That doesn't mean that's under control, and it doesn't mean that it's actually training the muscles that he's trying to train out of that exercise. Okay, so it's not a life and death scenario. Training is supposed to be a calculated stress on the body, right? Where we're directing forces. We're not just lifting weight mindlessly. If you want to do that, that's fine. You can go do that. If that makes you feel good and healthy, that's fine. Go do that. But that's not what this show is talking about. That's not what the training style that I share with my clients is all about. It goes a little bit deeper. So when you go too heavy, it tends to decrease ownership and control. All right, so it can decrease your rate and range of control. All right, and so and what does control mean? Control means one perfect rep. Say if we're doing 10 reps, doing 10 rep ranges, 3 sets of 10 is kind of a standard rep range out there. One perfect rep 10 times, right? I want that nice rep. So you're not just, it's not like one rep is in one plane and the other rep is kind of off that line. And then the third rep is off the line. And we got elbows all over and shoulders are moving if we're doing a press. I want you to make free weights look like it's on a machine in a fixed path. That's full control, full ownership. But if you go too heavy, you run the risk of losing control. Now, if you're an advanced lifter, obviously you trained yourself over time to be able to lift to maximal loads, 3-5 reps. A lot of my friends who are in the industry, they can lift like that. I can lift like that, but it takes a long time of developing that control. All right. And so then, later on, you might be able to load maximally if that's part of the program and the results that you want. But when you go too heavy, as a general rule, it has the ability to decrease your ownership and your rate and range of control, right? And so what happens is you'll shorten your range of motion, usually, and then you'll, your rate of control is kind of be all wobbly and all over the place, and you might be pile driving yourself into end ranges where you're more susceptible to damage along passive tissues like tendons and the musculotendinous junction. So the second thing that I have written down here is that it decreases the localized challenge. So if you're lifting for muscle hypertrophy and muscle growth, you want to have an awareness of the muscle you're trying to train. So again, we're going to use the biceps because we all love biceps. Everyone wants big biceps, right? So if you're trying to lift for biceps, it's most important for hypertrophy that you're feeling that muscle group in the desired rep range that you're training. So say you're doing 10 reps, you're doing 15 reps, you do whatever it is. You want to be feeling that muscle localized if that is the goal. If the goal is to challenge that muscle, we want to be aware of that muscle and we want to keep that challenge local, right? If you're lifting and doing bicep curls to grow your biceps, but your shoulders, your anterior deltoids are the thing that's burning, right? Or your forearms are the thing that's burning, or you're swinging it and your lower back is burning more than your biceps, I don't think that's going to elicit the changes you're looking for in the bicep muscles. Now, you can try it if you want to. Lord knows I did when I first got into lifting, but I'm here to tell you that I think there's a better way to do it and there's a cleaner way to do it, okay? So when you go too heavy, you can decrease that local challenge. and that can decrease the hypertrophy that you gain from it. The next thing is that when we lift too heavy, okay, when we lift too heavy and it's not well directed, and that's what I mean by too heavy, right? That you cannot have ownership and control, right? Because you can certainly have a weight that you can control for 3 solid reps. That's very heavy. There's nothing wrong with that type of heavy. The heavy that I'm talking about is too much for control. So when you're lifting too heavy without control, you create compensations. And then this becomes more systemically challenging. So yeah, you're going to get tired. You're going to challenge your central nervous system. But I have seen a lot of folks who don't have impressive muscle mass and they're very strong. There's a difference between being really strong and having a strong signal from your nervous system and growing muscle tissue that creates stronger bones, that creates a healthier cardiovascular system, that creates long-term metabolic health. There's a difference there. And then that also nourishes and prolongs orthopedic health, which is cartilages and joints and whatnot. We're going to talk about that. And lifting too heavy without control can increase decay of connective tissue and cartilages and orthopedic structures. So if you're lifting too heavy, you don't have control, you're pile driving into end ranges, you have a lot of forces going through the joint, and that can cause wear and tear on the hyaline cartilages that are said to be 8 times slicker than 2 ice cubes together. There's no nerve innervations on them. So, if you start to wear them down, you get what's called crepitus, which is the clicking and popping of joints. Sometimes, in some instances, that right there is a roughening of the contact surfaces. And that's the beginning stages to osteoarthritis. But most people aren't alarmed when they have clicking and popping in their joints because there's no nerve innervations yet. They can't feel any pain yet. But as time goes on, and you continue to wear those down, this is how arthritis happens. This is how, poor joint forces is how bone spurs happen, which are also called osteophytes. So when we start getting bone on bone going in that joint, we don't have a solution other than a joint replacement right now. So there's a line out of one of my textbooks that I loved, and it's always stuck with me. I highlighted it, and it was that you only have one cartilage system. Once it's gone, you don't get it back. So you don't get your cartilage health back. You don't get connective tissue health back. Right? We can lose, like with muscles, it's different. With active tissues, it's different. We could say go through a bout where maybe we're not lifting as much. Maybe we want to go run and we lose some muscle mass, or maybe it doesn't look like we have as much muscle mass. It kind of takes a backseat. But then we start lifting again and we get that muscle back. Right? Or maybe we pull a muscle, we get injured doing something. Maybe we are picking up a paper clip off the ground and we throw our back out and then we're hurt and we get some atrophy in our muscles. But when we get to train them again, we get the muscle health back. Doesn't happen like that with cartilages. You can have collagen proteins and you can have these things that can help, but your connective tissues and your tendons are different than your cartilages on the ends of your bones. Okay. And so those guys just don't regenerate your tendons don't regenerate at a fast pace, and your cartilages don't regenerate. So going too heavy without control, doing lifting that lacks complete control is going to put you at a lot of risk. It's unnecessary risk. It's ego lifting when we're lifting too heavy without control. You should think of yourself as a technician when you're lifting weights, right? How impressive can your form get? And you're going to grow muscle along the way of exploring that. And then when you have all of your good technique later on, you would be surprised at how impressively strong you're going to be able to get, but under complete control, slow controlled reps. And that's truly impressive. And that's what will make you a master of your craft. So lifting in control and ownership, what does that look like? Right? Lifting in control with ownership is going to increase local challenge to the desired muscle you're trying to train, right? So if you're trying to train for hypertrophy, if you want to grow muscle, when you lift with control, even if it's heavy, right? Heavy weight is good. It is good to challenge your body. You want to challenge your body with heavy weight. It just needs to be in control. And when you do that, it increases the challenge to the muscle you want to challenge and grow, right? So so it's not so systemically challenging, right? Unless it's a big multi-joint movement like a deadlift or a squat, you're usually going to kind of feel that in your cardiovascular system. You're going to be generally more tired, but you'll feel it in your legs more. You'll feel it in your back more. All those places that you're desiring to feel it. If you're doing a good proper bicep curl where you have the shoulder joint is locked in, and you're moving at the elbow joint, and you have your angles right on that, that's going to cause a local challenge in that muscle that you want to grow, not in the front shoulders, not in the back, not in all these other areas that you could be feeling it if you're just lifting too heavy because you think more load equals more muscle, right? It's more controlled load that equals more muscle, and more controlled volume, really. And then the next thing is lifting in control directs the load to desired muscles. We went over that. Prolongs orthopedic health. So when you're going slow and you're going controlled and you're lifting with ownership, it controls the forces that are going through your joints. So you're not getting as much bumping and slamming and harsh joint forces going. That right there helps tremendously preserve the health of these cartilages, these very precious hyaline cartilages that we have that are these anti-friction type materials, right, on the ends of our bones. So you're going to prolong that. What does that mean? Well, that's going to look a lot like longevity, you guys. That's going to look a lot like you get in shape now, if you're in your 20s or your 30s or your 40s, and you stay in shape until the day you kick the bucket. There's no reason you can't be lifting weights at 80 years old, 90 years old. I have clients that have lifted at 90 years old. Or at that 80 years old rather. I've watched my mentor train somebody who's 98, who's 99 now. And it's a beautiful thing, and putting forces through the body. Like, you can always do this. Now, a lot of folks end up finding specialists in exercise like myself and my mentor, who's in a class of his own. Often too late. They don't invest the time when they're younger to learn these principles. So I am here relaying this information that I've collected from clients who wish they could go back and have a redo with some of these core principles. So if you're younger, take this seriously and try to let it resonate with you, even if it might not in the beginning, right? Just let it marinate, because you have the opportunity when you're young to lift really sloppy, and you have the opportunity to lift you're young with a belief that if you control everything and you lift intelligently, that you're going to prolong your health. And the choice is yours. It's up to you. So this is just information for you to make your own decision. And then the last thing here that lifting in control and ownership does is it loads the muscles through a full range of motion. It challenges muscles to a full range of motion. What I mean by that is if you're lifting in more of a sloppy manner where you're not directing the load correctly, you're just lifting, a lot of times you're going to be kind of popping the weight up from the bottom. There's physics that is just carrying the weight to the top. And the only place you're really getting a challenge, if you're doing a bicep curl, would be at the shortened end of the spectrum and the lengthened end of the spectrum. You've basically bypassed and made it easier along the mid-range spectrum of the lift, right? And so you're not getting an entire challenge to the muscle. That's actually going to really inhibit the amount of hypertrophy you get. If you're not challenging a muscle through a full range of motion, you're not going to get optimal results. You might get results depending on your genetics, depending on how much you're eating, but you're not going to get optimal results, right? Controlled motions is what gets optimal results, where you turn over every stone to try and get the best possible result. So I'm going to end today's episode with a rep cadence for you to try out. That's a very, very simple one. By all means, this isn't the only rep cadence that you can do. There's a lot of different ones, but this is just one that will ensure that you're not lifting without ownership. And so if you do, say, a 2-second eccentric or a negative, which is where you're lowering the weight or you're going into a lengthened type position. So say you're doing a chest press and your hand is coming closer to your spine. That's the lowering portion, right? If you do that for 1/1000 to 1000, so a 2-second down, 1 second hold at the bottom, 2 seconds going into the concentric, 1 second hold at the top, 2 seconds down. Okay, so that's a 2-1-2-1 tempo. So 2-second eccentric, 1 second lengthened contraction, 2-second concentric is the way up, and then 1 second contraction. If you want to be cute and funny because of the year, you could do a 2-0-2-1 for 2021, where you do 2 seconds down, you immediately pump right back up for 2 seconds, you hold for 1 second at the top, and you go back in for another rep. But what this does is it kills inertial forces. It kills a lot of that slop that might be happening. It allows your brain to connect with the movement and thus connect with the muscles if you're executing this thing correctly. So that's something you can do to control it right away. Is there a time and a place to go really fast and explosive? There's a difference between watching something that looks explosive and then the person's neurology trying to explode. What I mean by that is there's a difference between having 50% of your 1 rep max, or say 50% of your max, your 3 rep max, and doing powerful, fast 3 reps, and you put it down and you're not at exhaustion, and then putting a full 100% of your 3 rep max where it's going slow, but your neurology and the person's brain who's lifting, they're thinking they're pushing fast and powerful. There's a difference between what the eye sees and the brain feels. Okay. And so there is a time and a place for explosive contractions depending on the goal. But from everything I talked about today, going slow and controlled can help you with your ownership. It can help you recruit the muscles that you actually want to train and get the result that you want. It can help you with your orthopedic health and prolong that, which is probably the most important thing that you can preserve, to keep you out of pain, to keep you out of having to take excessive ibuprofens after workouts, and anti-inflammatories to keep you out of your doctor's office for, joint issues and joint problems and all that. So there is an abundance of health that comes with resistance training, but it comes with great responsibility. With great power comes great responsibility. So go ahead and throw me a flex emoji in the comments if you guys are still with me here with the live audience. That's episode 141 of the School of Shred. This is a show that's designed to help you shred your old and make better your new. So go out and make your workouts better today. Shred the day and get better in every way. All right. Stay strong and healthy in body. Stay relentless and energized in spirit. And stay determined in your pursuits. Till next time, class is dismissed. Ask any questions you have. We got our Q&A Friday coming up. First one of the year this week. And have a good day, everybody. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.